A plane that was speeding down the runway, preparing for takeoff, had to make an emergency turnaround. The airline's regional president personally came on board and bowed low before a young woman, and the outfit she was wearing was a magnificent traditional Pakistani peshwaz with a delicate dupatta. What had actually happened? This incredible story began an hour ago at Jinnah International Airport in Karachi. My name is Zara. I am 23 years old, born and raised in Lahore. At that moment, I was walking through the departure terminal, feeling a mix of emotions, preparing for a flight to New York. If I said I wasn't nervous, it would be a lie. My palms were sweaty. This trip was of huge importance to me because I had just finished an internship program and was heading to New York for a life-changing job interview. Today, I had decided to wear a traditional Pakistani peshwaz that my mother had embroidered, specially by hand. Before leaving home, I hesitated for a long time, wondering if it would be too ostentatious to wear a traditional outfit on a plane, whether it would attract strange looks. But in the end, I decided to take the risk because my mother said, "Zara, beta, this peshwaz is a family heirloom. When you wear it, it symbolizes the grace of a Pakistani woman." This peshwaz was a deep emerald green with intricate gold zari work. The fabric was the finest silk and chiffon, which my mother had specially bought from the bustling market on Tariq Road. The cut perfectly accentuated my figure, creating a graceful silhouette, and the sheer sleeves looked delicate and beautiful. The embellishments of tiny pearls, carefully chosen, each one sewn by my mother's loving hands, completed the look. The length of the skirt was perfect, maintaining traditional, modest beauty without sacrificing the confidence of a modern woman. As I walked, I sent a message to my best friend in Lahore. "I'm at the airport, so nervous. I wore the peshwaz. I feel like I'm heading to a grand wedding." My friend immediately replied, "You must look stunning. Don't forget to send a picture. Good luck." Seeing the support from my friends, my mood improved a little. I remembered packing my suitcase in my hostel room last night, and all my roommates said I looked especially beautiful in this outfit. "Zara, in this peshwaz, you look like a Mughal princess from a story who just stepped out of the Shalimar Gardens," my roommates praised. As I walked through the airport in my Pakistani peshwaz, I felt the gazes of those around me. There was curiosity, admiration, and surprise. I tried to keep my composure and held my head high, but to say I wasn't worried would be a lie, because for the past few years I usually dressed simply in jeans and t-shirts. Passing by a small restaurant serving Pakistani cuisine, I couldn't help but stop when I saw the familiar sign, "Homemade biryani," and I immediately felt a warmth of home. Pakistani food is the most delicious, I thought. When I get back to Lahore, I'll definitely go to my favorite cafe on Alam Road. I was clutching a first-class ticket in my hand, but on the outside, I looked like a regular Pakistani exchange student. Apart from a small suitcase and a handbag with a box of mithai from a famous Lahore sweet shop, I had no other luggage. In my bag also lay a small locket with an ayat from the Quran engraved on it, which my father had given me, saying it would bring me good fortune. Walking past the duty-free shops, I stopped in front of a large mirror. The reflection made me a little nervous, but also proud. The elegance of the Pakistani peshwaz and the modernity of the airport created a wonderful contrast, but it didn't look out of place. "Ami, I hope I don't disappoint you today," I prayed, silently. People were rushing through the airport, travelers of different nationalities hurrying about their business. I noticed a few Pakistani tourists nodding at me with understanding. One elderly woman came up and praised me. "Beta, your peshwaz is so beautiful." "Thank you, Auntie," I replied shyly. "My mother made it. You can tell it's handmade and made with love." On my way to the boarding gate, I recalled my experience studying abroad in recent years, from adapting to a different culture at the beginning to becoming fully accustomed later. Every step made me appreciate my roots even more. I remember the first time my American classmates asked me where Pakistan was and what was interesting there, and I didn't know how to explain. Now I can proudly talk about Pakistan's cuisine, landmarks, and culture. Memories of my mother teaching me how to wear the peshwaz surfaced in my mind. She would say, "Zara, a traditional outfit is not just clothing, it's an attitude towards life. A woman in such an attire must have a graceful posture, a gentle character, and a strong spirit. Remember, true beauty comes from inner elegance and cultural richness." I didn't quite understand it then, but thinking about it now, I realized my mother was teaching me principles for life. I took a deep breath and adjusted the hem of my peshwaz. Today I must conduct myself with dignity. I encouraged myself. I will not bring shame to Pakistani women. Looking at the boarding pass, where Flight 168, Seat 3A was printed, I knew this was a turning point in my life. The opportunity to work in New York was waiting for me, and I was ready to face any challenges. The steps towards boarding gate 28 became lighter. The hem of the peshwaz swayed gently with my walk, as if telling a story of tradition and modernity, of East and West, and I was the protagonist of this story. After successfully passing through security, I arrived at gate 28. There was still half an hour until boarding. I found a seat and sat down. While waiting, I sent a message to my family to let them know I was safe. My mother quickly replied, "Zara, don't forget to take a picture for Amy when you're on the plane. Your peshwaz must be very beautiful." My father also wrote, "Beta, stay strong. I'm proud of you. Don't forget to try real New York pizza after your interview." Seeing my family's care, my eyes welled up slightly. I remembered leaving, and my whole family seeing me off at Allama Iqbal Airport. My mother held my hand and said, "Zara, take our family's blessings with you. You will surely succeed." The passengers around began to gather, mostly Westerners in business suits. I noticed a few people looking at me with curiosity. An elderly American couple even whispered about how elegant my outfit was. "Very beautiful," the woman said to her husband. "Such a national costume is really special." Hearing these words, a warmth spread through my heart, and my initial anxiety subsided significantly. Boarding was announced. I got in line. As a first-class passenger, I could board first. When I handed my ticket to the ground staff, he smiled warmly at me and said, "Your costume is magnificent." "Thank you," I replied, blushing slightly. Entering the cabin, I was struck by the luxurious environment of first class. Soft, comfortable seats, dim lighting, and friendly flight attendants. I was glad the company had upgraded me. This was my first time sitting in such a luxurious seat. Finding seat 3A by the window, I sat down and carefully smoothed out the skirt of my peshwaz, afraid of wrinkling the fabric. The image of the traditional costume looked even more elegant against the leather trim of the aircraft. The combination of green and gold shimmered enchantingly under the soft cabin lighting. I took a book out of my bag, planning to read during the flight. It was a book on international business etiquette, suitable for preparing for the upcoming interview, but honestly, I was too nervous to read, constantly thinking about how I would present myself at the interview. Other first-class passengers gradually took their seats. I noticed an elegant gentleman in his 40s sitting opposite me, tall, in a well-fitting dark suit. When he looked at me, he nodded with kindness and respect. I politely returned the greeting, but my heart was still a little nervous. Behind me sat a middle-aged woman who looked like a businesswoman on a trip, and a few other passengers who seemed to be flying for leisure. Everyone was quietly preparing for the upcoming flight. The flight attendants began their pre-flight safety checks. I noticed one flight attendant named Sana Khan. Sana looked to be in her 30s. She was tall and had a professional smile. As she passed by me, our eyes met for a moment, and she nodded. The plane began to move along the runway, preparing for takeoff. I gripped the armrests of my seat tightly, looking out the window. The night view of Karachi spread out below me. Millions of lights like diamonds scattered on the ground, beautiful and romantic. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Indus Air, Flight 168. The captain's voice came over the intercom. "We are headed to New York. Our flight time will be approximately 14 hours. The weather is good. We expect a comfortable flight." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. My hands were still damp with sweat, and my heart was beating faster than usual. This journey was not just a geographical relocation, but an important moment in my life. The plane began to pick up speed, the roar of the engines gradually increasing. I felt myself being pressed into the back of my seat. These were the last moments before takeoff. Looking out the window, I saw the lights on the ground turning into moving lines. "Ami, I'm taking off," I said to myself. Then we lifted off the ground. The view of Karachi became smaller and smaller below me, turning into a sea of shimmering lights. As the plane broke through the cloud layer and entered the quiet night sky, I felt an indescribable excitement. The flight attendants began serving drinks. Sana Khan was pushing a trolley in our direction. Her smile was still polite, her actions professional. When she came to me, I prepared to place my order. "Good evening. Would you like a drink?" Sana asked politely. "Yes, a coffee, please. Thank you," I replied quietly, trying to sound natural. "With a slice of lemon?" "Of course." In this seemingly ordinary exchange, I noticed Sana's gaze subtly change. Her eyes moved from my face to my Pakistani peshwaz and lingered on it longer than usual. I saw her eyebrows furrow slightly, as if she was thinking about something. But she quickly put her professional smile back on and handed me a cup. "Here you are," she said, and pushed the trolley on, serving other passengers. I lifted the cup, enjoying the aroma of the warm coffee, and looked out the window. The starry sky was incomparably bright. In that peaceful moment, I had no idea that an upcoming event would completely change the nature of this flight. I continued to flip through my book, but I wasn't really taking in the content. In my mind, I was still rehearsing answers to possible interview questions. The peshwaz made me maintain an elegant posture, but honestly, I wasn't used to such formal attire. I usually dressed very simply, and today, being so dressed up, I felt a bit constrained. Time passed quietly. I was lost in dreams of the future, unaware that a trial was about to begin. About 30 minutes later, I noticed Sana Khan walking towards me again. But this time her expression was different. The polite smile was gone, replaced by a strained, professional look. There was an emotion in her eyes that I couldn't quite place. She stopped in front of me, crossing her arms. I looked up, my heart beating faster, a bad feeling creeping in. "I'm sorry to disturb you." Sana's voice was polite, but there was a strange coldness in her tone. "I'd like to talk about your attire." I didn't immediately understand what she meant. Instinct told me to look down at my peshwaz. It was fine, no problem. I looked up at her, full of confusion. "Is something wrong with my clothes?" Sana coughed, her face becoming more serious. I could feel she was trying to maintain a professional tone, but there was something unfriendly in her eyes. "Your national costume, the one you're wearing, might cause discomfort to other passengers." She paused and continued. "That long skirt and flowing fabric, in case of an emergency, could hinder an evacuation." I couldn't believe my ears. Anger rushed to my head, my cheeks burned, my hands started to tremble slightly. I tried to control my voice. "Excuse me, are you talking about my Pakistani peshwaz?" "Yes." Sana's tone became harsher, a sense of superiority in her gaze. "I suggest you consider moving to economy class. Clothes like that might be more appropriate there." Those words sounded like thunder on a clear day. My head spun. My ears were ringing. Was this discrimination? I lived in the modern world and had never encountered such open cultural discrimination. I felt anger, hurt, and a deep pain, but my mother's voice echoed in my ears. "Zara, when you face problems, don't panic. Stay calm and stand up for your rights." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice even. "I'm sorry. What rule have I broken? I have a valid first-class ticket, and my attire is appropriate and modest." The passengers around started to notice our conversation. I felt their gazes, curiosity, sympathy, confusion. My cheeks were on fire, but I knew I couldn't back down. Sana seemed to realize her words had drawn attention, but she didn't back down, instead becoming more insistent, her voice rising slightly. "It's for the convenience of all passengers," she said. "Your type of clothing isn't quite suitable for first class. Frankly, other passengers have already reported this issue to us." I looked around, but saw no one expressing any dissatisfaction. On the contrary, most passengers were looking at us with frowns on their faces. Anger began to burn in my heart. "Excuse me, which passengers exactly reported this to you?" I asked in a tone full of doubt. "Can I speak with them directly?" Sana clearly had trouble answering this question. Her eyes darted around. "I can't disclose who it was, but some passengers do feel uncomfortable." I realized she was lying. This angered me even more, but at the same time, it gave me courage. This peshwaz was handmade by my mother. I tried to speak calmly. "It represents my cultural heritage and is a part of my identity. I don't believe wearing my people's national dress is inappropriate." Sana's expression started to lose its patience. She apparently didn't expect me to be so stubborn. She thought I would obediently agree. "In any case, my suggestion is for you to move to economy class. If you continue to insist on staying here, I will have to seek advice from my supervisor." The elegant gentleman sitting opposite me began to frown. I noticed he had been following our conversation, and his eyes expressed disagreement. A few other passengers exchanged glances, clearly puzzled by the situation. The elderly American woman even whispered to her husband, "Her outfit is very beautiful. What's the problem?" I felt the support from other passengers, and it gave me even more courage. "Fine, please get your supervisor," I said. "I want to hear an official explanation. I also want to know if your airline has clearly written rules that prohibit passengers from wearing national attire in first class." My voice was still trembling, but my tone had become firmer. Anger and hurt were mixed in my soul, but I knew I couldn't let my emotions control me. My mother said that a truly educated woman must maintain her dignity in any situation. Sana looked surprised. She clearly thought I would quietly comply. A flash of annoyance crossed her face. "Fine. I will call the senior flight purser, Rizwan Ahmed, but you will see that this is for the greater good." She turned and walked away, leaving me alone in my seat. My hands clenched into fists, my knuckles white. My heart pounded like I had been running, but I forced myself to maintain a calm expression. The passengers around began to whisper quietly. The elegant gentleman nodded at me, showing his support. The elderly woman shook her head, seemingly not understanding what had just happened. I adjusted the hem of my peshwaz again to make sure my posture remained elegant, remembering my mother's words before I left. "Zara, you are wearing a Pakistani peshwaz, which means you represent Pakistani women. We must show foreigners our dignity. Whatever happened next, I would not let anyone trample on my pride." This outfit was not just clothing. It carried my cultural pride, my mother's love, and the traditions of countless generations. Taking a deep breath, I was ready to face the impending challenge. Although I was still nervous inside, I knew I had to stand up for myself and for everyone who might face a similar situation. A few minutes later, a tall, large man approached me. He was in a dark suit, with a stern face. His walk exuded an air of unquestionable authority. From his name tag, I knew this was Rizwan Ahmed, the senior flight purser. He stopped in front of me, looking down at me. This posture made me feel very uncomfortable, but I tried to maintain a dignified posture, not showing him my anxiety. "Good evening. I am Rizwan Ahmed, the senior purser for this flight." His voice was low and heavy, clearly expressing impatience. "I hear you have a problem with your seating arrangement." I immediately noticed his trick. He didn't mention the issue with my clothes directly, but talked about seating, as if I had requested to change my seat myself. This deliberate distortion of the facts angered me even more. "I have no problem with my seating," I tried to say calmly, but my voice still trembled. "My ticket clearly states this is my seat. The problem is that your colleague asked me to leave first class because I am wearing a Pakistani peshwaz." Rizwan's face grew more serious, a slight disdain in his eyes. He glanced around, noticing that other passengers were paying attention to the situation. I knew he didn't like to handle such matters in public. "All right, Let's discuss this privately, he said in a commanding tone. No, my voice became firmer. This is not a personal issue. I want to know if your company's policy prohibits passengers from wearing national attire in first class. If there is such a rule, please show me the relevant document. This direct question clearly made Rizwan uncomfortable. His expression changed. Obviously, he didn't expect a young woman to challenge his authority so directly. It's not a matter of policy, he tried to evade, his tone becoming harsher. It's a matter of safety and the comfort of other passengers. Your attire could create certain problems. The elegant gentleman sitting opposite me couldn't hold back and spoke up. Excuse me, may I say something? He said in clear English, standing up. My name is Imran Khan. I have been observing this situation. As a passenger, I must say that this young lady's attire does not cause me any discomfort. On the contrary, I find her peshwaz very elegant. Rizwan clearly did not expect a passenger to interfere. An annoyed look on his face. He didn't like his decisions being questioned. Imran Khan continued, I have been in business for many years, constantly flying with different airlines. I have never seen a case where a passenger was asked to change their seat because of their national dress. This young lady's attire is not bothering anyone. I see no problem here. His words caught the attention of other passengers. The elderly American woman nodded in agreement. Her clothes are beautiful. I don't understand what the problem is. My daughter has a similar costume. Another businessman added, I believe that a national costume has cultural value and should not be discriminated against. Faced with a growing voice of protest, Rizwan's position did not soften but became even more rigid and defensive. Dear passengers, please do not interfere with our work. He raised his voice. In any case, this is my decision. Aviation safety and cabin management are within my purview. Then he turned to me, his gaze even colder. Madam, if you do not cooperate with us, we may have to consider other measures. What other measures? I asked, my heart pounding, but I tried not to tremble. For example, asking you to leave the aircraft. Rizwan's tone was threatening. We have the right to refuse carriage to a passenger who may pose a threat to flight safety or infringe upon the rights of other passengers. Aviation law gives us this right. These words suddenly escalated the atmosphere in the cabin. Calling a peshwaz a safety threat was absurd, but the confidence with which he said it began to frighten me. I felt the blood boil in my veins. Anger and hurt mixed together. My eyes started to burn. But I tried my hardest not to cry. Crying in front of everyone would mean showing that I was a weak girl. Imran Khan's voice sounded more angry. This is blatant discrimination. You are breaking the law. Other passengers began to protest. A middle-aged man stood up and said, I will file a complaint about this unfair treatment. But Rizwan was unmoved. He just smirked slightly. Anyone unhappy with our service can choose another airline next time. But on this plane, my decision is final. I looked at Rizwan's arrogant face and made a decision. I would not give in to such bullying and would not let cultural discrimination happen. More importantly, I remembered a special number saved in my phone. It was a contact that a kind elderly gentleman had given me at a Pakistan Janta's cultural exchange evening 3 months ago. At the time, he said, Beta, if you have any problems, contact me anytime. We must help each other. I thought it was just a polite gesture then, but I didn't think I would actually have to use it. I clutched my phone tightly, staring at Rizwan. Are you threatening me? I tried to keep my voice calm, but inside I had already made up my mind. Before you make your final decision, I think I need to make one phone call, Rizwan sneered. Call whoever you want. It's useless. On this plane, I'm in charge. But what he didn't know was that the call I was about to make would completely change the situation. I took out my phone, my fingers trembling slightly as I started dialing the number. Everyone around was watching me. The atmosphere was tense to the extreme. Rizwan and Sana thought I was calling a friend or asking my family for help. Disdainful smiles even appearing on their faces. Calling someone is useless, Rizwan said coldly. I repeat, I'm in charge here. You'd better hurry up with your decision. I ignored his words and pressed the call button. The contact's name lit up on the screen. Hassan Malik. This was the kind, elderly gentleman I had met at the event. At the time, I only knew he was an important businessman with an interest in culture. We had discussed the importance of cultural exchange. My understanding had impressed him, and he gave me his contact. He had said, "Zara, there are few young people with deep thoughts like you. If you have any problems, call me." Now I understood that what he had given me was not just an ordinary contact. The phone rang a couple of times. "Hello, is this Hassan Malik Sahib?" I asked. "My name is Zara, the student you met at the event in Los Angeles 3 months ago." I tried to speak calmly, but my voice still trembled. The voice on the other end sounded surprised, but friendly. "Zara, of course. I remember. You're the smart girl, with a deep understanding of culture. What's wrong? You sound distressed." His gentle voice almost made me cry. Hearing a caring voice in such a hostile environment was priceless. The passengers around began to notice the seriousness of my conversation. Imran Khan stopped reading his magazine and listened intently. Rizwan's expression changed from contempt to curiosity, but still remained arrogant. "I'm in a very unpleasant situation right now," I continued, my voice firmer. "I'm on board one of your airline's planes, Flight 168. The staff is discriminating against me because of my Pakistani Peshwas, demanding I leave first class and even threatening to remove me from the plane." There was silence on the other end for a couple of seconds. Then Hassan's voice sounded completely different. I heard shock and anger in it. "What? That is absolutely unacceptable. Tell me all the details." I took a deep breath and began to describe the situation briefly and accurately. The offensive words of the flight attendant Sana Khan about my Peshwas not being suitable for first class, the threats from the senior purser, Rizwan Ahmed, to deplane me, and the fact that other passengers were supporting me. "Flight number 168, gate 28. I provided the details. The staff members are flight attendant Sana Khan and senior purser Rizwan Ahmed. My current seat is 3A. Rizwan's face started to turn pale. He had obviously heard something unusual and was beginning to realize that what was happening might not be a minor issue, but he was still stubborn. "No matter who you call, my decision cannot be changed." Sana also came closer, her face expressing confusion and growing tension. Hassan Malik on the other end sounded very serious. "Zara, I want you to know one thing. I'm not just a businessman. I am the regional president of this airline. These employees who are discriminating against you are, in fact, offending a friend of their boss." This news shocked me so much that I almost dropped my phone. I had not expected such a coincidence. The passengers around looked at me with curiosity, seeing how my face had changed. "I will deal with this immediately." Mr. Malik's voice was as hard as steel. "Such discriminatory behavior is absolutely intolerable. Please wait. Do not leave your seat, and do not let anyone force you to do anything. I am coming now. Thank you. Hassan Sahib." My voice trembled, but this time with gratitude and hope. I silently ended the call and put my phone back in my bag. Then I looked at Rizwan with a new calmness. "You just said that you make the decisions on this plane," I said politely but firmly. "I think someone will be coming soon to tell you that the truth might be different." Rizwan tried to maintain his threatening demeanor, but I could see the anxiety in his eyes. "Whoever you called, the airline's policy won't change." Imran Khan looked at me with admiration. "It seems your call was unusual," he asked quietly. I nodded slightly but didn't reveal the whole truth. "Mr. Malik is a man of his word." "Malik?" Imran's eyes widened. "Not Hassan Malik, the man from the aviation industry?" As a frequent business flyer, he certainly knew about the legendary status of Hassan Malik, a man who could influence the decisions of the entire industry with a single call. The other passengers, although they didn't know the details, could sense the seriousness of the situation from our conversation. The atmosphere in the cabin filled with tension and anticipation. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen next. One businessman said excitedly, "I've never seen anything like this. It's more interesting than a movie. Another passenger started recording a video on his phone. This is definitely going to be on the news. Rizwan approached me. His tone completely changed this time. It was no longer threats and arrogance, but fear and sycophancy. Madam, excuse me, who did you just call? May I know? I think you will find out soon, I replied calmly, though my heart was still racing. Sana's face turned white as a sheet. She realized she might have caused a huge problem, and the scale of it was much bigger than she had thought. I was just following procedure, she mumbled. An announcement came on again. The captain's voice sounded noticeably more tense. Ladies and gentlemen, we have just received an urgent order from air traffic control to immediately return to the boarding gate. I ask everyone to remain calm and fasten your seatbelts. We will provide further information shortly. The entire cabin instantly buzzed. Passengers looked at each other, not understanding what was happening. Is it a terrorist threat? Someone asked worriedly. Maybe a technical malfunction? Another voice suggested with alarm. Such a situation is extremely rare in the history of civil aviation. It usually only happens in cases of serious security threats or government-level emergencies. Rizwan's face turned deathly pale. He hastily grabbed the interphone, his hands shaking. Cockpit, this is the cabin. Explain the reason for the return. What happened? The reply from the interphone was brief and cryptic. Classified incident. Execute immediately. Cooperate with the instructions from the controllers. An important person will be boarding. An important person? Rizwan's voice cracked. What important person? Can't you tell me? Execute the order immediately. Sana was even more frightened. She grabbed Rizwan's arm. What is happening? In 10 years as a flight attendant, I've never experienced anything like this. Other passengers began to panic. Is this a national security issue? A businessman asked worriedly. Are we safe? A woman clutching her bag asked with alarm. I have an important meeting, another passenger complained. Imran Khan looked at me with a gaze full of respect and disbelief. He realized that this unprecedented return of the plane was directly related to my phone call, but even he didn't think the effect would be so swift and dramatic. I continued to sit quietly in my seat, outwardly calm, but inwardly shaken. I knew Hassan Sahib would take action, but I didn't think it would be on this scale. One phone call made an entire plane turn around. It was beyond my wildest imagination. The plane began to turn. The huge fuselage slowly changed direction. The sound of the engines changed. The whole process made everyone feel uneasy. Looking out the window, I saw the lights of Karachi reappear in my field of vision. We were going back. Rizwan tried to contact his superiors, but the answer was the same. Await further instructions. Cooperate with the authorities who will board. Sweat beaded on his forehead. The collar of his white shirt was soaked. He obviously knew that the matter could be much more serious than he had thought. Maybe, Sana said quietly, but cut herself off. She turned to me, her eyes filled with genuine fear. It can't be because of her call, can it? Imran Khan couldn't help but ask me, Madam, is this related to your call? Who did you actually call? I just nodded slightly. Mr. Malik is a man of his word. The announcement came on again. Ladies and gentlemen, we are returning to the gate. I ask everyone to remain in their seats. An important person will be boarding. I repeat, an important person will be boarding. Who could it be? The passengers whispered. The atmosphere was filled with anticipation and tension. I adjusted my peshwas to make sure I looked impeccable. Although I was nervous, I knew justice was on its way. My grandmother used to say, "Don't be afraid. Justice may be delayed, but it is never absent." Today, I was going to see it with my own eyes. About 10 minutes later, the aircraft door opened, and hurried footsteps were heard. Everyone turned towards the entrance. The atmosphere was charged to the limit. The first to enter were 2 security personnel in suits. They quickly scanned the cabin. Then a middle-aged man in a custom-tailored dark gray suit entered. He was tall, with an extremely serious face. Every step he took radiated absolute power. He was followed by 5 to 6 people, apparently top managers of the company. Upon seeing the man who entered, Rizwan froze. His face turned white as paper, his legs trembled. "Mr. Malik," he mumbled barely audibly. Yes, it was Hassan Malik, the regional president of the airline, a legendary figure. Now he had personally appeared on this plane. All the passengers held their breath. Even without knowing who he was, everyone understood from his aura this was a very important person. Hassan Malik's gaze swept across the cabin and settled directly on me. He walked towards my seat, the others making way for him. Approaching me, he made an incredible gesture of respect. He bowed low. This shocked everyone. "Zara, I offer my deepest apologies for the unjust treatment you have had to endure." His voice was low and sincere. "On behalf of our airline, I express my profound regret. This behavior completely contradicts our company's values." Silence fell in the cabin. Passengers' eyes were wide with disbelief at what they were seeing. The president of a major airline personally apologizing to a young female passenger. I tried to control my emotions and gracefully stood up. "Thank you for coming in person, Hassan Sahib. I hope this matter will be resolved fairly, and no one else will have to face something like this." "Absolutely. And the measures taken will be most serious." Hassan turned to Rizwan and Sana. His gaze was as stern as the sky before a storm. "I want to know all the details. Who can tell me why our company's employees are discriminating against a passenger in a national costume?" Rizwan's legs were shaking so much he could barely stand. "Sir, we just thought that this outfit might what?" Hassan's voice thundered. "A beautiful Pakistani Peshwaz might what? Interfere with flight safety? Or violate a dress code? I recall our company has no policy prohibiting national attire." Sana was trembling with fear. She was speechless. She never thought a simple prejudice would lead to such consequences. Imran Khan once again acted as a witness. "Mr. Malik, I saw everything from the beginning. This young lady's conduct was perfect. Your employees initiated the conflict and threatened to deplane her." Other passengers nodded, confirming Imran's words. "This girl was very quiet, and her dress is very beautiful. I don't understand why she was treated this way. It's blatant discrimination," the elderly American woman said emotionally. After listening to everyone, Hassan's face became even darker. He turned to Rizwan and Sana. His voice sounded like a verdict. "You two are immediately suspended from your duties. The company will conduct a full investigation into this incident. Until the investigation is complete, you are not permitted to work." "But, sir," Rizwan tried to justify himself. "No buts," Hassan cut him off. "This behavior not only violates company policy but also tramples on basic human dignity. In my company, I will not tolerate any cultural discrimination." He turned back to me, his face softening. "Zara, once again, I apologize. This does not reflect our company's values. We strive to create an inclusive environment." "I accept your apology," I said, my voice still trembling but full of determination. "But I hope this serves as a lesson so that more people understand the importance of cultural diversity. We should not discriminate against each other because of our differences, but respect them." Hassan nodded. "You are right. Your wisdom touches me. I promise we will use this case to train all our staff." Then he turned to Rizwan and Sana. "And now, you two must formally apologize to Zara. This is not a company order, but a moral duty." Rizwan and Sana looked at each other and slowly approached me, their faces full of shame. "Zara, I am deeply sorry for my actions. My judgment was flawed. Your Peshwaz is very beautiful. It symbolizes deep cultural roots. Please forgive my prejudice," Rizwan said in a trembling voice and bowed low. Sana spoke through tears. "I am truly sorry. Your words and your attire are beautiful, and I hurt you because of my ignorance. I am very ashamed." I looked at them. The anger in my heart subsided, giving way to empathy. I remembered my mother's words. Forgiveness is not for others, but for peace in your own soul. I accept your apologies, I said softly. I hope you truly learn a lesson from this. The world is beautiful because of its diversity. Applause broke out in the cabin. The passengers were applauding this perfect resolution. My generosity and wisdom. Imran Khan shook my hand. The way you handled this is admirable. You not only defended your rights, but also taught everyone a lesson. Hassan Malik said in closing, Zara, you have shown the power of culture. I will ensure this incident becomes a case study for our corporate culture. A new team of flight attendants boarded the plane, ready to provide the best service. I, still in my beautiful Peshawaz, remained in seat 3A. But now everything was different. The plane took off again. This time, the atmosphere was warm and harmonious. The passengers were no longer tense. They expressed their satisfaction. Looking out the window at the lights of Karachi for the second time, I felt a deep sense of gratitude and growth. Imran Khan, after getting my permission, moved to the empty seat next to me. You know, he said, you are a hero. A real hero is not someone who isn't afraid, but someone who is afraid but does the right thing anyway. I smiled. This experience had strengthened my confidence in my cultural identity. I was proud to be Pakistani. When a flight attendant from the new crew passed by, he asked politely, Your Peshawaz is beautiful. Could you tell me about it? And I happily agreed. For the rest of the flight, I talked with passengers, telling them about Pakistani culture, about the Badshahi Mosque, about our traditions. People were interested, planning trips to Pakistan. A little girl came up and said, You're beautiful, like a princess. Can I wear a dress like that when I grow up? Of course, sweetie, I replied. When the plane finally landed at JFK Airport in New York, I knew it had been more than just a flight. It was a spiritual journey of dignity and courage. As I disembarked, many passengers said goodbye to me. Walking through the corridor of the New York airport in my Pakistani Peshawaz, I felt an unprecedented confidence. This outfit was my armor, my pride. As my mother said, true beauty comes from within. Today, I had proven it. This was the power of culture, the value of dignity, and a beautiful chapter written with wisdom and courage.